Hey, 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 hey. What is going on? It is me, your host from the Room 9 podcast, Sean Cudahy, introducing episode number 19. I don't know why. I feel like episode 20 is like a little milestone, maybe. I don't know why 20 seems like a cool number to be at, but been pushing hard since October, baby. Coming up on a year of sobriety on April 12th, which is pretty awesome. Pretty excited about that. What else is going on in my life? Oh yeah, 3 weeks, no cigarettes, which is cool. I don't know if I'm cheating by using a vape, but I mean, I have a game plan of going down in nicotine milligrams and that, which I've been doing, and eventually can get off of that. So I don't know if that's an accomplishment. You guys tell me if that's cheating or not with the vape. I have no idea, but it's helped me stop smoking cigarettes, which I feel there's a lot more crap in the tobacco and a cigarette than there is in the vapor from a vape. I don't know. You guys let me know. But anyway, in episode 19, I sit down with a wonderful lady by the name of Carly Holsizer. Took me a while to remember how to pronounce her name, but I got it. She is an advocate for Friends of Recovery and for Youth Voices Matter. So she works with a lot of teens, and it was really awesome to get her perspective on what's going on in teens' lives with as far as addiction is concerned. And it's crazy how young some people start. She actually got into recovery her senior year of high school, and she talks a little bit about that. She talks a lot about how, what it's like in the life of a teenager now, and she also touches base on a lot of things as far as events they do and everything else like that. You can get a hold of Carly Holsizer, Carleehulsizer. You can get a hold of her on all social media platforms if you just type in her name. You can also go to youthvoicesmatterny.org to check out events they got going on. You go Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Youth Voices Matter NY to see what is going on in their life. So that is what this episode is all about. I don't think there's anything else I have to tell you guys other than our website is going. It's moving. We're slowly getting more and more of an audience, more and more traffic. That's room9podcast.com. You can check us out there. We have the contact page, which is pretty sweet. You just fill that out and you get emails and stay up to date with everything that's happening at Room 9. I am slowly getting to work. I have fell behind the last couple weeks, but I am getting right back on it and slowly getting to work. I still need to put up account balance and spending page. I still need to do that. There is a support page on there if you want to help us out. We are slowly getting ready to start doing some more advertising. I would love to be able to put together in the far future, but love to be able to start doing events with this money and stuff like that we get in. That would be awesome. I am getting a new laptop soon. It is going to be a gift for my 1 year of sobriety from my wonderful parents. So shout out to Jim and Barb Cudahy for that. So that is an extreme and awesome and amazing blessing. But yeah, you can get on the support page and help us out. You can go to Patreon and sign up for that and do monthly. When you get something back in return, you can do a one-time donation. And there is also a letter that explains how the finance thing works with Room 9. And basically that is, I do not have any access to the money. So it has to be supervised if I'm going to spend it. And you can get hold of the wonderful, beautiful, incredibly amazing Christine Glavey, who is in charge of all that. Her email's at the bottom of the letter. And you can get a hold of her there, cjglavey@gmail.com. You can ask her anything, what's going on with everything, blah, 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 and she will keep you posted with all of that. So I am talking too much, so here is episode 19 with Carly Holsizer. Thanks for listening, guys. Much love. Peace. All right, Carly. Yes. Here we are. This is my first travel in Room 9 that I've done. Usually I have people come to the studio with me. So I was like I said before, I was happy. I feel like important traveling to go do a podcast. So this is pretty cool. So here we have Friends of Recovery. And like I kind of told you before, I like to keep this like literally just like a conversation. So, depending on who it is, like I'm sitting down with a doctor next week and I did some research on him and what his medical background is and stuff like that. But I mean, with you, I really didn't do too much other than what we talked on the phone. I'm like, I'm going to save this for our conversation to get to know you. And that's kind of usually how my episodes develop, which I love because it's just like people are sitting here with us. So, I mean, I don't even know exactly your role here. You just told me a little bit.
Yeah.
for Friends of Recovery, and then there was another. What's the other?
Youth Voices Matter.
Youth Voices Matter. So I don't know really how you kind of started off, what your role is with everything here, and
Yeah. So I'm a youth recovery program specialist. That's a fancy title that I usually don't use very often, but I work for Friends of Recovery New York. And Youth Voices Matter is the youth arm for that organization. So pretty much we're out in the community developing youth recovery community organizations. I cover the Western region, Finger Lakes region, Southern Tier, and Central region of New York. So I travel a lot.
you do, yes.
I do. And it makes me feel important as well. And then I go to Albany every other week to meet with my team, who's also spread across the state.
So most of it is around the whole state then?
Yes, it's a statewide youth and young adult recovery movement.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many people would you say were like involved with it?
Well, working for us, it's me and 2 other people. And then statewide, we have, I don't even know how many
So
individuals.
It just varies. Okay.
It varies. It varies based on region and like involvement, depending on how, active the youth recovery movement is, or youth recovery community rather, is in certain regions. So, but it's cool.
That is sweet. How long have you guys been around for?
We've been around, Youth Voices Matter has been around for a year and a half. Friends of Recovery has been around for about 10, 11 years.
Oh, so it's been around. Because that was the first I heard of you when my recovery coach, Kristen, called me up. She's like, I just promoted your ass or whatever. And I was laughing, but she told me about you guys. And I've never heard of you guys. So which this recovery thing is fairly new to me over the last year or so. But yeah, I haven't heard of you guys. So that's awesome. You guys have been around that long.
Yeah.
And was it originated in this area?
It was, there was a grant put out from the state to support a statewide infrastructure of youth and young adults in recovery. And Friends of Recovery New York applied for it. They got it. And I was one of the people hired. So that's kind of how it originated. It originated from the state, so in Albany.
And that's kind of your main hub is Albany.
Yes, but this is my office here in Rochester.
This is. And so when you go to Albany, like what's a typical day look like for you?
Oh, boy. Wake up around 5 in the morning, hit the road by 6:30
How
a.m.
far of a drive is that?
About 3 hours, a little over.
Okay.
So I try to get there by like 9:30, 10 o'clock, meet with my team, talk about, what has happened over the past week and a half to 2 weeks, different goals that we have for the next couple weeks, and how we can support each other. So because we all work remotely, it's really important that we all get together and meet in person.
And how often you do that?
Every other week.
Every other week.
And we do
Wow,
an
okay.
overnight, so it's Thursday to Friday, and I stay overnight in Albany every other Thursday.
Every other week. Wow. Yeah, that is some traveling.
That's some traveling. It's a good thing they reimburse me.
That is very true. That is awesome that you guys are able to do that.
Yeah.
And what does like your community outreach stuff kind of look like?
Ooh. Well, for example, like this month, we have Stand Up for Recovery Day coming up on March 20th. So that's a statewide advocacy day in Albany. And we have a bus coming from within my region from Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse. And I'm trying to recruit and engage young people to like come on the bus. If anybody out there wants to come on the bus, we can pay for you. But we're, trying to do outreach for different events, really creating that, statewide infrastructure and really like supporting and empowering young people to like start these community organizations.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's dumbfounding to me because I didn't really start doing many drugs at all until probably my senior year of high school is when I drank a couple times, and I think I might have smoked pot once or twice, but it never appealed to me. Even after my brother and sister died when I was 15, I found this, my escape was music and sports pretty much. That's kind of how I escaped from everything. So I never really went to drugs. It is insane to me how young some people like doing heavy drugs.
Yeah.
Drugs are. And I know over the phone you kind of shared a little bit with me about how that was your story too. You started pretty young.
Yeah.
With the drinking and all that. Mm-hmm. And was it mainly drinking, or were you getting into other drugs as well?
Drinking was I hate to say my favorite thing, but it was the easiest thing I could get my hands on. Mm-hmm. It was the most accessible, and smoking pot, like I can't remember exactly what I felt the first time I got high, but I remember it took me outside of myself, and I really liked that, and that's what I chased. And then towards the end of my addiction, I was, using pills. That's the extent that it went to.
So mainly like opiates, or
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my girlfriend's a teacher in West Seneca, New York, and some of the kids in there, she teaches juniors that are involved with even heroin now. It's scary. It
is.
Really is scary because you're hearing about younger kids dying, and that's why I think it's super important. I feel like the youth gets kind of neglected a little bit because it's almost like, oh, it's a stage and it's this and they're going to grow out of it. And sure, it's pretty safe to say a majority of them, most of them probably won't grow out of it. Yeah. I think as you're getting used to it and they're using heavier drugs and as they get older, it just becomes it becomes normalized and they continue to do it. So that's why I think it's so important with stuff that you guys are doing to like stop it. Let's stop it at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, we really want to normalize youth recovery. I mean, for me, I got clean and sober my senior year of high school right after I turned 18. It was hard because I had a lot of misconceptions about what recovery was. I thought that recovery was just for old people. Like if I still have a problem when I'm 40 or 50, then I'll get help.
Take care of it. Yeah.
But because I didn't know anybody in recovery my age. I didn't lose the house, the car, or the kids because I didn't have the house, the car, or the kids to lose. So my bottom looked much different, and I was comparing. What I try to stress and really get to these young people about is that it doesn't matter what you lost or where you come from or what bottom you had to hit. When you're ready to make a change, you can, and there should be support for you.
That's so important. That is so important because, like you said, some people think like they have to hit this, lost my family, lost my car, lost my job, lost all my friends. Now I'm living on the street. Now I should, change my ways. And as opposed to like you in your senior year of high school, all right, let's stop this now.
Yeah. I lost myself.
Yeah.
Like that's when I looked in the mirror and I didn't know who I was. And, every day I wanted to die. Like that was enough for me to say, I need help. And really ask for the help. And there's no shame in asking for the help. The shame is in not asking.
Absolutely. And I don't know if it's something like as everybody gets older, they look back at the younger age and say this, but I feel like depression and suicide are much higher than when you and I were even in high school. And I don't know what's the cause of that. Sometimes I wonder if it's like social media. I feel a lot of it has to do with when I was in high school, you get in a little argument with somebody or whatever. It ends when you leave, but now it just continues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day about, we've always had, what the cause of, suicide rates and self-harm and depression and anxiety, like what the cause of all that is, because these things have been around since the beginning of time. But the rates are just growing exponentially, right? So I think a lot of it has to do with that instant gratification culture of like, I feel uncomfortable with my feelings, so I'm going to run to this. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know what the facts are behind that, but
no, it sounds, it sounds right.
We don't teach, like for me, prevention, I like prevention coming or getting to kids as early as elementary school. Teaching, if you feel sad, that's okay. If you feel angry, that's okay. Here's how to cope with that. And teaching healthy coping skills, because if we keep teaching people and kids that this feeling is bad and we keep labeling certain feelings as bad, they're going to be running from them the rest of their life. Feelings aren't bad. They're just feelings. They can't hurt you.
Yeah, and how to deal. It's nowhere. You don't see it anywhere in mainstream, anywhere. There's 50-year-olds I know, including myself. I had to really learn how to deal with anger and, sadness, and it's being a man, it's okay to cry. Like, you have to learn how to cry. I've had to teach myself how to cry again. And so many people just feel like they have to keep it enclosed. I think one of the biggest feelings is I don't want to burden anybody else. I think that's a lie we tell ourselves all the time. I don't want to bother this person or even my parents with my sadness or my depression. And there's probably a lot of, I'm a kid, what do I have to be sad about? I'm a teenager. Why? I can't tell anybody I'm depressed because they'll laugh at me. They don't even know what life is yet. There's so many like stereotypes that go into that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are. You're right.
I think I did an episode, I don't remember, it might have been episode 8 or something he was 22, and I remember asking, first thing I asked him was, like, how did it feel to have to be sober before you were legally able to drink? Like, you were sober in AA before you were legally able to drink. And I kind of asked you the same thing, because for me, that's when I got going as far as drinking. And, they call them the party years and quotes and everything else. And did you ever feel like you missed out on a part of that?
Sometimes I feel like I'm missing out, and then I have to remember all the gifts that recovery has given me, and I have to remember that the cool thing isn't going out and partying and blackout drunk and wake up the next day and not remember what's going on or what happened. But the cool thing was on my 21st birthday, going out, having a good time and actually remembering everything the next morning. The cool thing is, celebrating New Year's and actually remembering the night, remembering things. That's something that I've missed. I killed a lot of brain cells and I couldn't remember a lot of things when I first got clean. And now I can. And it's, I have I hate to say a new pride, but I'm proud of my body today and I'm proud of my mind today. And I just want to take care of it as best as I can and really safeguard my recovery. So when I do get a little bit like, oh, look at these girls on Instagram having a good, quote unquote, good time. I'm like, no, because I'm good with chilling in my sweatpants at 9:30 on a Saturday, watching Game of Thrones. Like, I'm fine. So
I love it. I do love, it's funny, which I was never a go out and party. I just don't like groups of people. So I was more of a stay at home and like party with my closer friends. But I do not miss at all that, this was the best concert ever. I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like I actually can like spend a decent amount of money on concert tickets now and then actually remember everything.
Yeah. That's the best part about it.
Not wasting money anymore. And money on, substances. Like I save that money too. So.
Oh my gosh, I drove a friend around the other day to like 5 or 6 different places, and he gave me $50. And this was like 3 weeks ago. I still have it.
Yeah.
I was laughing the other day. I was telling my girlfriend Christine, like, it's so weird. I've had this $50 for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I have nothing I need to buy right now. It's insane.
Weird, isn't it?
It's super
just
weird.
A weird feeling. And the normal, quote unquote, normal people out there are probably like, what are they talking about? What do they mean?
What does that even? Yeah, that's hysterical.
But the other people get it. You guys, the people like us get it.
Yeah, there's a majority of people who are going. Yeah. The main audience who will be listening to this definitely gets it.
Relatable.
That is for sure. So yeah, you got clean, and when you're a senior, you said, okay.
Yep.
And where did you go from there in your life?
Oh boy. Well, let's see. I was going to go to college. And originally I got clean so that I could move back in with my mom, who's also in recovery. She just celebrated 25 years back in November.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's been clean like my whole life. Shout out to mom. Love you, Carol Michelle. So I moved back in with her because I was living with my dad because he really didn't care if I used or whatever. And I moved back in with her and I thought, okay, I'm going to finish out my senior year, get through part of the summer. And then when I go to college, I can use again. And it's going to be great. I'm going to be normal. And that didn't end up happening. I ended up going to a meeting with her because she didn't trust me home alone by myself, which was a good call.
Naturally.
And I went there and I heard there were a few young people at this meeting and I heard exactly what I needed to hear. It was at that moment I realized that I needed connection and I needed to be with other peers around me that have gone through the same things, that are struggling with the same things. And I was really attracted to the people that got from point A to point B, and I wanted to know how to get there. So, I ended up not going to college. To this day, I haven't gone back to school because once I applied the program and I really wanted recovery, I was afraid. I was like, I don't want to go to school. Like, I'm afraid of what I'm going to find there, the party scene. I don't want to get involved with that. At the time, I didn't feel like I was strong enough. Now I'm contemplating, school and continuing my education, of course, but obviously not living on campus or doing anything like that. It took a lot for me to say no. When I see all my friends from high school going off to college and I'm not, and I'm, going to inpatient or outpatient program and, working with a sponsor and like doing step work and stuff like that while they're doing homework. It was a very interesting time for me. And then, I remember passed by a couple of years and, up comes my 21st birthday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, even before my 21st birthday, when I first got clean and I was 18 and I was sharing in a meeting about, I don't know what I'm going to do on my 21st birthday. And this girl came up to me and was like, okay, first of all, it's like 2.5 years away. So slow your roll. Second of all, have you drank before? I looked at her like, duh. And she's like, well, then you already had your 21st birthday, right? Like, you've already experienced it. And I'm like, okay, that's good. I see you. So, I was really future tripping about that. And when my 21st birthday finally did come around, I felt fine. I was good. I wore a sash instead of saying 21st birthday. I wore a sash that said clean and sober and went out with that. So, Yeah, it was a good
Oh,
time.
that's great. I think the one thing that you kind of mentioned, which is totally taking this left field, but it just clicked in my head, so I'm just going to bring it up anyway.
Go ahead.
Is you kind of talked about what your friends were doing, what everybody else was doing, and I remember this at a very young age of me comparing myself to like everybody else, what's going on. And it literally, I'm 33 now, and it took me probably till I was 32 to get into this mindset of, all right, I'm going to stop comparing myself to everybody else and compare myself to myself. And, where am I growing along the line? And I was reading this book by this clinical psychologist I really like, and one of his chapter titles was Compare Yourself to Who You Were Yesterday, Not to Who Somebody Else Is Today. And when you start doing that, and you can learn to shut off looking at other people, because society says, if I'm 33 years old, I should be married, I should have a house, I should have this great job, and have my 401k set up, and I mean, I'd feel like a big piece of shit if I kept comparing myself to that, because I don't even have a bank account right now. I'm 33 years old. I don't even have a bank account. So if I was comparing myself to all of that, I would totally feel crappy about myself. But now I'm comparing myself to who I was a year ago, and I was stealing from people who love me in order to not be dope sick. And that is amazing where I've come. I got this recovery podcast. I have just so many things working out and growing for me because I'm stopped comparing myself to everybody else and started just working on myself and comparing myself to who I was yesterday and growing every day. So I think that's super important as even a kid, because I know people in junior high still feel that.
Yeah.
Like they should be a certain way, act a certain way, be doing a certain thing.
Well, that's the culture and society that we live in today is, oh, look at her. Oh, look at him. Oh, look at this. Look at that relationship. Look at this.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
It's terrible. Look at that family. I wish my parents were like that or were together or whatever. But yeah, that's interesting. I was thinking about it too, that not only that comparing, but I like that being better than I was yesterday, because I'm still trying to better myself. And if I ever come to a point where I think I'm good now, I'm fine, I'm perfect, I'm missing something. I'm definitely missing something. I don't ever want to feel that I've got this thing. I've got life. Life's good. Life is good comparing to 5 years ago. But no, life is good. And I do want to be better than I was yesterday. And I think a lot of that comes with, working my recovery and, just people working their recovery, whatever that looks like, multiple pathways.
So many. Yeah.
I'm a true believer in multiple pathways too.
I just wrote a blog on that. Actually, I'm in the middle of typing up that basically talks about that, because there's a lot of, I've had to go into like AA when I go to AA and stuff like that with more of a chilled out mind, because I grew up in like a stronger Christian home and dogmatic Christianity, and that like gets my skin going. So I've had to learn to like calm down. And I see a lot of similarities in AA sometimes, where I've met so many people where they're like, nope, if you're not doing it just this way, you're not even in recovery. I've had sponsors say to, my friends, they'll tell them, I've been helping Sean with the podcast, and I've been going to the Refuge Recovery, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's one of my favorites. And, a sponsor said to them, so you've been doing everything but working on your recovery. And it was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. And you have that in any group. There's going to be somebody who is just ruins it for everybody else.
Right. I mean, people get very territorial about what saved their life. And I think, I participate in the other 12-step program. So I'm not an AA goer, I'm an NA goer. And I think that there's a lot of people who, will say, well, this way is the right way. Every other way is wrong. Not knowing that, like, my brain, like the way I work, the way I comprehend things, the way I work my recovery is going to be different than you. And especially with, whether it's culture or the era you grew up in or whatever, like that plays a role in how I think recovery is all about learning. So how do you learn? How do you learn about yourself? How do you make changes? It's going to look different for everybody. And it's time we start acting like that and not stigmatizing people for what they choose to do.
And tell them what they're doing is wrong.
Exactly.
Because I've had a few people talk to me, because I'll do 1 to 2 meetings a week. And that's usually enough for me. That's good for me. But my main thing is, this podcast here, it's at least 4 to 8 hours a day of me working on this podcast, which is my recovery.
Yeah.
I'm constantly working on myself and keeping that in the forefront. And I developed this quote, which people who listen to this consistently are probably like, here he goes again. I've developed this quote in my first 28-day program that I do. There are all these H&Is going on, and people who talked about relapse were always like, I just thought I had it. I thought I had this all figured out. I thought I was good. I didn't think I had to do anything anymore. And next thing I know, I'm right back where I started. And I developed a quote I say to myself every day is, I know I got this as long as I know I don't got this. As long as I'm continuously, all right, you could screw up at any time, and being constantly aware. It's like, I know I will not fail at it. But as soon as I think, all right, I don't need to do this podcast, I don't need to go to self-help, I don't need to talk about my recovery anymore, I can just go on with normal life, whatever that means, I'm going to fail.
Yeah, no, that's good. I really like that. I think, too, not to jump quickly to another topic, but
go for it.
I like to jump around a little bit. I'm also somebody who is in recovery from mental health. So just applying those same principles and that same phrase, quote, if you will, to, depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder is, got this as long as I know that I don't got this, in the sense that I can recover from these things. But when I think I don't need to talk to my therapist or to go to my psychiatrist or to talk to other people or be in community with other people, that's when I know something's wrong if I don't continue to work at it. And that's going to look different. I mean, over the past almost 5 years, the way I've recovered and am recovering has changed. I think different periods and seasons of my life, I do things a little bit differently, and I need to adjust that to what's going on, whether I'm in a relationship or whether I have stress with my parents or whether I'm going through grief. It's going to change. There's no like, okay, this is my set recovery schedule and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. No, like it has to ebb and flow. And if, one of the things too, I'm jumping around a lot, a lot. You can tell me to stop.
No, we're good.
Because I will.
No, we're good. I told you, I like the free flow.
So it's weird to me because I was in a meeting the other day. When the same people share the same problems
over and over again.
And I'm not saying you can't have a problem. I'm not saying that a meeting isn't the perfect place to talk about a problem. But there's two things. We need to talk about a problem and work on a solution. And if your problems over the past 18 years are not changing, that's a problem. Like, it's okay to have a problem. Like, we're all going to have struggles in life. But if they aren't continually changing, we're doing something wrong.
That's an awesome point.
Right?
It's analogous to those like kitchen nightmares or restaurant shows where they come and they rebuild them.
Yeah.
And the people are like, I don't know what happened. My great-great-great-grandparents had a line down the street and we haven't changed anything. And nobody's coming here anymore. Well, there you go.
Why.
You haven't changed anything, and that's why you're failing. That's so important. And I love that. We're always going to have problems, but if the problems aren't changing, then we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And wow, you see that a lot. You do.
Yeah.
You see that a lot. It's like the person that keeps going in a relationship with the same terrible person.
Just want to choke them.
There's a common denominator here.
There is. And you know what I say to people when they say, like, I don't know how this happened again or why this is still the same problem, and they aren't changing anything to fix that. I say when the pain gets great enough, you'll make the change.
You'll figure it out.
Clearly the pain isn't great enough. You claim that it is, but if it was, you'd have enough of it. I mean, I've had enough of it, and I've been listening to you for the past 6 months talk about the same damn thing. Oh, goodness.
Tell me how you really
I pray
feel.
for them. I pray for them. I do a lot of meditation. Hopefully they get it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there is a lot of that.
There is.
That's an awesome point, though.
But I mean, sometimes, there's this quote that I really like, and I'm going to misquote it. But
That's why I always just start with, I'm going to paraphrase. I like that. I'm grateful for the difficult people in my life because they've showed me who I don't want to be. So really changing my perspective of this meeting sucks because they're talking about the same thing. Like, no, what can I learn from this person? Oh, not to do that. Right? Like, just, don't act that way. Or if I was in that position, what would I do? Because there might come a day where I have that problem. Got to be grateful for the difficult people sometimes. You do. I live in an Oxford house, and there's plenty of those people. There is. Some of them I'm like, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go back home. That's how I was the other day. Just people who don't you tell them, you try to talk to them, and they don't change anything. They don't change anything, and it gets very frustrated. And I remember telling the one guy that I'm pretty close with there, I was like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, we get rid of him, there's going to be another one. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a constant test. So it's like, all right, so what can I have control over? One thing, what I do, how I react. So how am I going to take care of that? How am I going to deal with it?
If anything, things like that make me a better person. It makes me more patient.
Absolutely.
It makes me more understanding. It makes me more, when somebody's a little off or rude or whatever, I don't try to take offense to that. I try to say, okay, clearly this person is hurting, because hurt people. So whether they're doing something wrong or they're being mean or they're being a jerk, it's like, okay, what's really going on? Mm-hmm. I'm going to take it for what it is. It's nothing. But people who are just idiots or just not
dumb,
doing what they're supposed to, you want to strangle them. But it's there's a disconnect there, and it's important to recognize that it's not aimed towards me. I'm not going to let ego take a hold and claim that all this is because of me. It's all because of me. They hate me. They're this towards me, because it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's almost always the case.
Yeah.
Absolutely is. Let's swing to a little bit more on mental health.
Sure.
Because that's something I don't talk much about. I mean, other than situational depression, other than situational anxiety, I've never really had to deal with many of those things. Mm-hmm. Like, as far as like your role with Friends of Recovery, what do you guys do as far as helping people with the mental health issues?
I am a firm believer that addiction and mental health go hand in hand. I suggest people. I don't force. I don't give advice. If I know somebody or I know a close friend that's starting their recovery journey, I say, like, after a year of, abstinence and get the substances out of your system, go get a mental health evaluation. I'm a big proponent of taking care of the mind, body, and soul. So for New York's stance is pretty much the same. Like, do what you got to do for your recovery. If mental health is keeping you, like depression, anxiety is keeping you from living your best life in recovery, take care of it. Because you didn't get into recovery to live a miserable life. You came into recovery to live a full life, right? So, that's what I have to say about that. And I actually, I received a call from a woman out in Buffalo last summer. And I think she got my phone number from a Youth Voices Matter event that I had out there. And she called me, and she was in really rough shape. She was very depressed, talking suicidal, and I didn't want to hang up with her until I knew she was okay. Mind you, this was 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, so I'm quote-unquote off the clock, but I'm never really off the clock if my phone rings. I'm talking to her, and, I gave her some suggestions. I said, are you in a safe place? Do you need anything? Like, what do you like to do? What makes you happy? And
so was this just a random?
It was a random
just a random
call.
Phone call? Okay.
And, I rarely do I get those, because we're not really like
a
crisis.
hotline.
We're not a crisis hotline. I'm not specialized in crisis. I'm just somebody who's been through it, and I want to help the next person. So there have been cases where I've been in that situation where somebody needs help immediately, just talking to them, calming them down. And I didn't hang up the phone until I heard a smile over the phone. And I did, and she laughed. And since then, we text few times a month.
That's awesome.
And yeah, she's doing good, and really grateful that I was in the right place at the right time whenever she got my phone number. So
yeah, there's so much of that going. So many people are scared to reach out for help.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me. Which I felt it too, though, where, even in my addiction, my pride totally kept me from telling anybody that I was struggling with this. Again, not to keep talking about Christine, but I remember there was 2 moments where she's like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. Nothing. I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about. No, there's something wrong. What's going on? And it's so difficult. I don't know why. Again, I think it comes back to we feel like we're burdening other people with our problems. There's
that. There's the pride. And I think a lot of times when it comes to mental health, specifically depression, it's like my mind will minimize my depression and say, well, it's not that bad. They're not going to care about it. And oh my goodness, I just heard it in a different meeting the other day of somebody saying, my problems aren't that bad and I feel bad about sharing them. And I'm like, no. We have to get out of that mindset of my problems aren't that bad. Your problems are like, if they're bad to you, they're bad. And that's the same thing with trauma and the things that caused us to pick up from the first time. Any trauma is trauma. And just because it wasn't, the most extremely bad childhood or different assault or whatever, like, trauma is trauma. And however you react to it or however bad it feels for you, no one can take that away. And it pains me when I hear people say, well, but it wasn't that bad. Like, no, if you don't get to decide, or I don't get to decide if something was bad enough for you. I don't know where I was going with that, but I just felt it important to say.
Well, yeah, about talking with it, because I've done that too so many times, where I've had to learn not to, saying my brother and sister died, but then I find out somebody, was kidnapped and raped and their whole family got murdered in front of them and like just crazy stuff. And then I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to say mine was nowhere near that bad. But it is. Each situation is different. And as you mentioned earlier, every little bit of experience from the time you're born trained you how to react to certain things. And we all are on our own journey. We all, as much as we're so completely different. And we all have our own ways of how we react, what we do, what's going to work best for us. And that's super important to get out there and have people know. And especially, again, I think teens and young adults, to really get that out there to them is extremely important.
At the same time, just while it's important to know that like your problems are bad enough, or however you want to say that, it's also important to say that you might have been victimized, but you are not a victim anymore. Or at least for me, I might have been victimized, but I don't want to play the role of a victim. I want to play the role of a survivor and an overcomer. I don't want pity. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I want people to empathize with me. But
Huge
then
difference.
I want to know that I've overcame that. I'm not defined by my addiction. I don't say, hi, my name is Carly and I am depression. Hi, my name is Carly and I am addiction. Because I'm not. I'm a person in recovery from substance use, from depression, and bipolar disorder. I'm a person in recovery, and I'm continuing to get better every single day. I'm not what I was. I'm not the actual illness. I'm more than that. And language is so important. It's so important. And, it helps break the stigma. It helps normalize a health condition, a health crisis, if you will. Just language is huge too.
Oh my God. Even how, you talk to yourself.
Oh yeah.
Was something huge that I've learned, where I had to stop myself from even just like a joking, I knocked this cup of coffee over. Sean, you're such an idiot. Saying that to myself. And you say something so much, so often, your ego just starts identifying with it.
Yeah.
And you start believing it and you'll hold on to it. And it took me a long time of mental discipline to stop saying, oh, you're a fuck up, or you screwed this up, you're such an idiot, you can't do anything right. Like all these sayings where I've had to hold on a second. And I've had to learn to really just sit back and re-talk to myself, and how am I going to, when I make mistakes, how am I going to do that? Because that just sent me into self-pity.
Yeah.
Talking to myself like that sent me into self-pity, and then in self-pity, nothing good comes from self-pity.
Oh, no.
I've been able to find good in anything other than self-pity. Like, there's nothing there. You become stagnant. You become lazy, complacent. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to change. You want people to hand you things. Like, I've lived in it for so many years. For a big chunk of my life, I lived in it. And it's so important, to, especially, and again, to bring up the youth. Like, if we could start telling them, teaching them, and showing them these things now. Like, how are you talking to yourself? You're beautiful. You deserve to be forgiven. You deserve to be accepted. You deserve to be loved. Just learning those things. I mean, again, I'm 32 years old, or 33, but I learned it at 32. So if you can cut that in half, and 15, 16, 17-year-old, and teach them to really love themselves and accept themselves, I mean, that's so important.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we try to do with Youth Voices Matter, is really empower and inspire young people. And for us, youth and young adults ranges from like adolescence to about 30, a little over 30. So we're a youth and young adult movement, but that's what we try to instill and empower young people to learn, is like, you are known, you are valued, you are prized, and you have something to give. You have something to offer this world. As crazy as it is sometimes, but we want everybody to feel like they can, not only live their best life, but improve the lives of others too. That's what we're here for. Which
goes back to the AA thing. If you want it, give it away. And then helping kids help other kids, and help other kids, and help other kids helps themselves, which is something seems so simple to know, to be selfless is almost being selfish in a sense.
Boy.
And it's such a weird thing, but like helping people makes me feel good. I always tell people, you wouldn't help somebody if it made you feel like crap.
I mean, yeah, me and my boyfriend Anthony have that debate all the time. Is it, are the 12-step programs, are they a selfless program or are they a selfish program? And I'm like, he has this idea that selfish shouldn't have a negative connotation. And I'm under the impression that recovery and living a life in recovery is both selfish and selfless. And this is just for me, just my own thoughts and opinions. But if I can't help another person if I don't first take care of myself. So if I'm not filling myself up with what I need to, there's nothing for me to give away to the next person. So it's selfish in the sense that I need to put myself first, but it's selfless because if I don't do that, I can't help the next person because somebody helped me. And that's why I want to help the next person, because if nobody was there for me, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now.
Yeah, I love those philosophical debates.
Yeah. Well, let's debate about it.
I do. I love it. I just, is there really any act that you can do that is truly selfless when you get down to the root of it?
Do you watch Friends at all?
I have. No, I've only tried to watch Friends
because it reminded me of an episode where they did talk about there is no selfless good deed, and I'm like, I guess because it does make you feel good.
Yeah.
But
and that's always my argument. Like if helping somebody made you feel like crap, you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I guess.
So, yeah, that's awesome. But let's do a little plug. How do people get a hold of you? How do people get in touch with you? Where can they find help? Websites, whatever.
Well, if you are in no, I'm just kidding. If you live in the western region of the really anywhere in New York State, you can visit our website at youthvoicesmatterny.org. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're on there, Youth Voices Matter New York. And you can reach out to me, Carly Hulsizer. I am on all social media. And if you
How do you spell your last name?
Hulsizer.
And Carlee, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
And I always love doing this at the end, kind of like your final thoughts as far as, let's go with the youth. That's like one of your big things. If you were talking, like, what could you give? If you could have to give any advice one time to a whole group of youth, like, what would be the number one most important thing you would, like, tell them?
That a lot of people say it's never too late to make a change, but I like to argue that it's never too early either to make a change.
Yeah, I definitely feel that there's got to be so many people out there that feel like, oh, don't even bother.
Yeah.
With the youth, like they're not gonna change that young, and because I feel like it's much more difficult because of those reasons of you feel like you're missing out on your college years, your party years, and that's like this like kind of cliche that goes through people's heads, like, oh no, I'll just change, like you said earlier, I'll just change when I'm 40. That's something they do there, and it is amazing when you get into not numbing anymore and facing your problems and overcoming them and learning to love yourself and learning to forgive yourself and how beautiful life can be. Like even just feeling the struggle now, I love like just even like painful experiences. It's just like, oh, I feel alive. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's authentic. It's real. It's raw. And that's what life is. Like I want to live life. And I can't do that if I'm hiding behind a substance.
And the issue always comes back to is you can't selectively numb. So if you're numbing anger and
I say that
jealousy
all the time.
and you're numbing happiness and joy and everything else. Yeah, it's a very important thing, I think, to remember. As soon as you start numbing one thing, you're going to numb everything else. And it's just a cycle you get trapped in. I mean, constantly.
Selective numbing. I used to say that all the time. It's so funny that you brought that up. But
Well, thank you for taking your busy schedule and setting aside some time for Room 9.
Yes, this was awesome.
I'm sure we'll be working together more and staying in touch. So, all right, Carly.
Thank you very much.
All right. Later, everybody.
What's going on, people? Thank you for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Carly Hulsizer. Again, you can get a hold of her at Carly Hulsizer, CarleeHulsizer on all social media. You can also go to youthvoicesmatterny.org or search at Youth Voices Matter NY on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. So, yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. I cannot wait for the next episode next week. I believe I'm going to release one where I sit down with an incredibly beautiful human being, and she's a certified yoga teacher. She's a pastry chef. She does all sorts of amazing holistic things that we get into a discussion about. I will talk to you guys next week. I love you guys. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Have a great week. Bye-bye.